whether or not other children in the congregation will be at risk.
Yes.
And how do you apply that to a decision on whether or not to reprove? How is that part of repentance?
Well, you'd have to take that into consideration. If they were going to be a danger to the congregation, they would be removed. And is that what you're asking, or if they stay in the congregation?
Well, I'm asking how it is you come to a decision about whether to reprove or not, and what factors you take into consideration.
That is one factor that is taken into consideration.
So if you're not satisfied that this person will not offend again, then you won't reprove. You'll disfellowship.
Yes.
And when the person's disfellowshipped, they then can still attend meetings and so on, but under some restriction, is that right?
Under a lot of restrictions.
Yes. And members of the congregation cannot associate with them socially.
Socially or spiritually.
Yes. But the person is still otherwise in the world and can associate with people outside of the church.
Yes.
And you don't take into consideration, do you, how people outside of the church might be kept safe from such a person whom you're not satisfied will not reoffend?
If they were outside the church and they were a close friend, I would tell them.
Well, and how would you know if they're a close friend and they're outside of the church?
If they were a close friend of mine.
A close friend of yours?
If I was.
Yes.
If I associated with them.
Well, what about people who are not close friends of yours, others than outside of the church? You don't take any steps, do you, to protect them from this potential reoffending? You don't, do you? You're concerned with the congregation principally, aren't you?
We're concerned with the congregations. We are shepherds of the congregation.
Yes, and you're not a shepherd to those who are not in the congregation.
No.
And as an organisation, in your experience, you don't seek to protect or take care of children who are outside of the congregation.
That's a broad statement.
Well, I can limit it.
Yeah, limit it,
In
please.
your decision on whether or not to disfellowship someone, you don't take consideration of children outside of the congregation.
Do take consideration of them, but what ability have we got to protect every child in Australia?
Well, what you can do is you can report to the child protection authorities.
And that is done in some cases.
But generally it's not done, is it?
No.
It's not done unless there's a legal requirement for it to be done, is there?
That is true.
And equally, as a practice, in your experience, judicial committees don't report these serious allegations of sexual abuse to the police unless there's a legal requirement for them to do so.
That would be true.
And that's because within your church, you see yourselves as having the structures to deal with these things internally.
That is within our church.
Yes.
Not outside.
Yeah. And your structures are based on first century Christendom as set out in the Bible.
Yes.
Now, turning specifically to the case of BCG, I'd like to show you part of BCG's statement, paragraph 37. While we're waiting for that to come up, perhaps, Mr. Bardich, if you can just look at me and we'll get to the screen in a moment. Have you, I withdraw that, did you listen to or watch BCG's testimony yesterday?
No.
Is there a particular reason why you didn't do that?
I preferred not to, so I could answer any questions truthfully, and I wouldn't be just trying to cover what BCG said. I prefer to be truthful and say from my own point of view.
Well, to be fair, were you advised that that's an approach you should take?
No. It was my own choice.
And I take it then you haven't read BCG's statement?
No.
So is it the case that you don't know what it is particularly that she said here yesterday?
No.
And have you read the press overnight where her statement was reported in some detail?
No, I didn't read the press.
All right, let's look at page 30, paragraph 37. So this is what BCG said. She said, my father left home some 8 or 9 months after October 1988. Before my father left, I tried to talk about the abuse, that's the abuse she had suffered from him, to Lynn Bardich, who was married to one of the elders at the congregation, Kevin Bardich. Now, I take it your wife is Lynn, is she?
Yes.
Yes. And she says, Kevin was a friend of my father's. Is that right? Back in 1988, were you a friend of BCH, that's BCG's father?
Yes.
And you had helped build parts of their house, is that right?
Yes.
And BCG says, I said to Lynn, I need to talk about some stuff that's happened between me and Dad. And then she says that her understanding is that Lynn spoke to you. Now, did your wife raise that with you, that BCG had said to her that she needs to talk about some stuff that's happened between her and her dad? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yes. And did you then send the message back via your wife that you can't speak with her without your father being present?
I would have never said that.
Well, why would you have never said that?
Because that's not me. And what happened after would prove that.
Well, isn't the case... Well, I withdraw that. Of course, at that time, when that was raised with you, I take it you didn't know just what it was that BCG wished to raise. Is that right? You didn't know how serious it was or what the matter was.
I didn't know how serious it was.
Yes.
And as she was a young adult, I would have spoken to her anyway.
Well, you wouldn't have spoken to her with just you and her present, would you?
No, I would speak to her with somebody else. I would speak to her by herself, but with somebody else, like my wife, in a room that's close or, in the adjoining room.
Yes, because you counselled not otherwise to be alone with other women, is that right?
That's right.
Yes. Now, it's also part of the church's teaching, isn't it, that if a member of the congregation has an issue, a problem with another member, they must take it up with that member first, and only if they can't resolve it must they take it to the elders. Is that right?
Not in all cases.
Yes. If it's a serious wrongdoing, then they should take it up with the elders directly. Is that right?
Yes.
But if it's not serious, then they should take it up first with the person concerned.
Yes. You're talking about Matthew. The scriptures in Matthew.
It may be.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
about
Sorry.
it. You've got me there. So if you didn't know what it was that BCG wished to raise, you therefore didn't know whether it was a very serious matter or not, did you?
But how could I give advice if I didn't know? That's why I would sit down with a person first.
Well, doesn't it stand to reason that you might have said to your wife, well, tell her that she must raise it first with her father?
It's not in my personality.
You wouldn't have expected it to be a serious issue, I take it, given your friendship with the father?
I still would not have said that. I would have let the person talk to me.
Well, do you say that she's making it up, do you?
No, I'm not saying that. It's just
Well, she says quite clearly that you said this. Are you saying she's making it up?
I think she said that my wife said that, Your Honour.
Correct, you are correct. So you say you would never have said that to your wife, do you?
No, I would have never said that to my wife.
So your wife then has made something up.
I'm unsure. But I would have never said that to my wife.
That's what it amounts to, isn't it? I mean, someone has to be telling the truth here.
Yes.
And we have to work that out.
I understand that.
Well, can you help me?
I can only say what I said at the time. I can't go beyond that. You know,
What did you say to your wife?
I'm unsure, but I wouldn't have said that because I will sit down and I'll speak to anyone.
I'll ask you again, what did you say to your wife?
I am unsure.
You have no recollection at all of what you said to your wife?
No.
Just that you deny saying this?
Yeah, because I know I wouldn't have said that.
But you can't help me with anything at all as to what you did say?
No, Your Honour. Sorry. It's 26 years ago.
Very well.
Now, you served in the Judicial Committee with your fellow elders, Mr. Ally and Mr. DeRoy, and you were, excuse me, you had before you, as it were, an issue concerning BCH and his relationship with another woman, not his wife. Is that right?
That is true.
And whilst you were investigating and considering that matter, the allegations that BCG made that she'd been abused by her father came to your attention. Is that right?
That is true.
And by you, I mean you and the other members of the Judicial Committee.
Yes.
Yes. And so then,
yeah.
and so you then, as a Judicial Committee, investigated those matters too. In other words,
Yes.
BCG's matters.
Yes.
Yes. And in a sense, there was a bit of overlap because there were common families and so on. Is that right?
Sorry, can you repeat?
There was some overlap between the issues, that is, the ones concerning BCH and the other woman, and BCH.
There was a lot of overlaps at that time. There was, you know, information coming in.
So you investigated them concurrently?
Some of it, yes.
Yes. Because, for example, BCG's mother had things to say to you which were relevant to both inquiries.
That could be the case.
Yes. Now, did you first conduct a preliminary investigation by two elders and then decide to refer it to the Judicial Committee, or did you just subsume it into your existing Judicial Committee?
I would not be able to remember all the details on that, but yes, I would have started off with a preliminary investigation.
Well, it should have, but it seems in this case it probably didn't, that you, since you already sat in a Judicial Committee, you just dealt with it. Isn't that what happened?
It could have been the case because the evidence was there. Not the evidence of BCG, but the other evidence that was there with
Yes.
BCH. Sorry.
And during your meetings, you required BCG and BCH to attend at the same time, and you required BCG to put her allegations to her father in his presence. Is that right?
BCH was in the meeting. BCG wanted to put the allegations to BCH. Sorry, I'm just being careful.
No, you seem to be reading from something. What are you reading from?
I just got the BCG and the BCH and my notes so I don't get mixed up there.
Yes, well, perhaps you can put your handwritten notes to one side. There's a list there, which
okay.
it'll be shown to you so
Sorry.
you can see the people's names.
Right.
And of course, thank you for attempting to avoid saying people's names. So you say BCH was in the meeting, and BCG was also in the meeting. Is that right?
For a period of time.
For a period of time. And it's the practice to require someone, or it was the practice then, to require someone who made allegations about someone else to make them directly to the person. Is that right?
It was a practice, but at the same time, can I qualify?
Yes, of course.
At the same time, if a person was to be able to face their accuser, quite often that was the start of a healing practice.
So I understand you to be saying that it was a justification for that requirement that the accuser faces the accused is because it can have a healing component to it, or healing result.
That was one reason, yes.
Right. And do you understand that to be a justification for that rule that existed that required an accuser to put an accusation to the accused?
That was what the accused, that is what BCG wanted to do at that time.
Well, you say she would have wanted to do it. She didn't ask to have her father present so that she could confront him with the allegations, did she?
I can't remember that.
He was presented with a process which included having her father in a meeting that she then had to, if she was to pursue her allegations, she had to make them in that meeting to her father. That's right, isn't it?
We would have pursued the allegations anyway.
Well, you see in your paragraph 4.8, perhaps we can call it up.
Oh, that's on the screen. 4.8.
So it should be on the screen.
Yeah, I got it.
You'll see, you say in your statement, the Judicial Committee informed BCH of the allegations, but he strongly denied them at first and was quite verbally aggressive towards BCG. At the committee meeting hearing, I recall his body language was physically threatening, and BCG appeared frightened of him. Now, you will accept, of course, that for that young woman, 17 at that time, having suffered as she did at the hands of her father, that was a traumatizing experience to face that, wasn't it?
It would have been.
And it wasn't conducive to arriving at the truth, was it?
It didn't arrive at the truth at that time.
Yeah. But to have a process like that where the victim of the abuse has to face the abuser and put the accusations to him is not conducive to arriving at the truth, is it? Because she feels silenced by his presence and frightened of him. Don't you see that?
That is true. She would have felt frightened of him, but at the same time, there was three people, three men that knew her quite well. She'd grown up around, and we were there to protect her anyway from her father.
Now you accept that what she was being required to do was to speak about very personal and intimate matters about sexual contact by her father. Accept that?
In front of her father.
Well, in front of you and your two colleagues as well.
She didn't have to go into detail.
Well, how's she going to bring home her allegations and have you accept them if she doesn't detail what they are?
The allegations were as far as she wanted to go with the detail.
Well, perhaps they were as far as she was able to go within the circumstances of your hearing.
I believe that.
Yes. Because let's have a look, since you don't know, let's have a look what she said about this.
I think we might come back to that after lunch.
Yes, Your Honour.
You understand that for BCG, the trauma of having been abused and then the traumatic experience of being interviewed by the three of you, having to confront her father, and then the decision that you make, paying no regard as recorded to what she went through and the process of your committee. Do you understand that in itself
Yes.
was an extraordinarily negative thing for her to receive?
I can understand that, yes.
Well, can you give me any explanation as to why you let that happen?
Yeah, Dr. Jason Morrison, theologist again. I just want to say thank you for watching the videos, and I hope you got plenty of self-rediscovery and freedom out of it. If you watched it on YouTube, please share or like, maybe even comment. If you watched it on Facebook, like, comment, share. But most of all, get out and live. This isn't a rehearsal. You've got a one-off life. Don't let your loyalty and your faithfulness blind you to the life that you should be experiencing. Till the next video, thank you for watching and bye for now.